The first Berserker Khazan has 5 parameters you can allocate your hard-earned Lacrima into, but which of these give you the most value? After putting over 70 hours into the game, I'm here to share with you what I've learned to help you have an easier time making that decision. So with that out the way, let's get into this, yeah? We'll start off from the top with Vitality. This increases your total health pool, so you could take more damage before you die. It slightly increases your damage output, regardless of which weapon you're using. Your weight capacity increases, so you could equip heavier armor while maintaining an 8 in agility. Agility allows you to dodge attacks quickly. The lower the grade this is, the slower and less iframes you will have when dodging. Lastly, it increases your attribute resistance, so you could take less damage from these elements, and the status effect takes longer to build up. Vitality seems like a good choice, huh? Let's take a look at the spreadsheet and we'll see how well it scales. It seems after 20 points of Vitality, we will finally see diminishing returns. Diminishing return means you're getting less value the more you allocate into a certain stat. As you can see, we're only getting 40 Vitality per point instead of 50 after 20 points. From my experience, Vitality is actually the weakest stat of the 5, and I would only allocate 20 when starting out for the maximum value, then come back later once you allocate it into the better stats. While you may think having a bigger HP pool is better in surviving a fight, you'd actually be surprised that your stamina pool runs dry way more often than your HP pool, making endurance a great parameter to invest in. Endurance does give a small amount of HP and the much more important stamina. This will increase that white bar under your HP. You use stamina for everything vital in this game, whether you're dodging or guarding an attack, or attacking the enemy. Since this double dips into defensive and offensive, I highly recommend you increase this first. It also increases your stamina recovery rate, so you could go from one enemy to another on the battlefield. When you brink guard, you start stamina recovery right away, so having this higher means you will be able to capitalize on your opponent's opening. Just 5 points into endurance will give you a big boost right away, with the other 15 hitting the same diminishing returns as Vitality. I'd still invest until 50, as stamina is just so important, but let's go over the other options before we commit to this plan. Now all of these stats were recorded with the Great Sword equip, so let's go over that real quick before we go over the other parameters. Each weapon will have a scaling grade. This will determine how much damage you'll get per point you allocate. Since the Great Sword scales with a B in strength, it's advised to pump your points into strength for the highest return per point allocation. Proficiency does give a damage boost, but not so much. If you like the spear, then Proficiency is what you want to aim for, with Willpower giving you the second most. The dual wheel enjoys Willpower and Strength second. This of course is a small pool of weapons we have, and other games like this usually have outliers that scale with a different stat than the norm. So when you pick up a new weapon and you're doing less damage than before, it might be because it doesn't scale like the traditional weapons do. Right now we only have C and B scaling. We can make the assumption that there will be an A scaling, and maybe even S tier being the highest, but I'll update this part in the full game. Strength will increase your health just as much as endurance. It does increase your attack damage, with the most being the Great Sword. It also slightly increases your weight capacity. The last benefit it provides is reducing the amount of stamina damage you receive. Whenever you get hit, you may notice you also lose stamina. This will help reduce that for any mistakes you may make, but it shouldn't be the primary reason you invest in it. Since the Great Sword benefits the most from strength, it is to be noted that it has a lot of charge attacks that require time to execute. During that charge window, you may take damage, and the reduced stamina damage you take can synergize with the heat of battle and indomitable skill tree nodes. They further increase your damage output while decreasing the damage you take, making it an interesting double-edged sword by purposely taking damage from the enemy. Strength seems to have no diminishing returns, as you're constantly getting 4, 5, or 6 per point allocation, making it a fantastic investment, especially if you enjoyed the Great Sword. Willpower, on the other hand, should definitely be a consideration if you don't like the Great Sword. It gives the same health increase as endurance and strength. It also increases your damage if your weapon scales with it. Since we have the greatsword equipped, this does nothing for its damage. It does, however, increase your stamina recovery rate, which I value a lot. It also reduces the amount of stamina you lose when an enemy attacks you while guarding. This leaves stamina to attack back when the enemy has an opening after their assault. Like I mentioned in the endurance section, when you brink guard an attack, you start stamina recovery right away. So willpower will not only reduce the amount you lose when brink guarding, but recover your stamina even quicker. These two bonuses pair really well. All weapons come with a form of stamina reduction when it comes to guarding and a way to damage the enemy when brink guarding, making this playstyle even better with willpower. At 7 points of willpower investment, you will start to see diminishing returns, but if you enjoy the dual wield weapons, then it scales just like strength, so allocate to your heart's content. Lastly, we have proficiency. It increases your HP like endurance, strength, and willpower. It also increases your attack damage if your weapon scales with it. When you attack an enemy, you reduce their stamina bar, and this further helps in breaking the enemy for brutal attacks. The spear scales the best with proficiency, and it has the Moonlight Stand skill tree node, which further increases how much stamina damage you deal. If you like dodging more than guarding, then proficiency might be your friend, as it reduces the amount of stamina needed to dodge. All weapons have a skill tree node to further reduce the stamina cost of dodging, and even an attack to follow up, with the dual wield having the best. Deafness not only dodges an attack, but attacks the enemy for an aggressive playstyle. At 7 points of proficiency investment, you will start to see diminishing returns. But if your main weapon of choice is the spear, then it scales just like strength and willpower, so invest as much as you'd like. So now that we have a better understanding of each parameter, this is the allocation I would do if you want my recommendation. I'd allocate my first 5 points into endurance, and then another 5 into vitality. The prologue of the game has you using nothing but the dual wield, so if you're on the fence and you may not enjoy them, then consider putting some more points into vitality if you're afraid you'll die and lose your Lacrima. Otherwise, hold on to them, because as soon as you beat the prologue, you'll get the greatsword soon after. If you don't like either one, then the spear is a little after that. Play around with all 3 weapons and see which one resonates with you the most, and then dump your points into strength if you like the greatsword, willpower if you like dual wield, and proficiency if you like the spear. Increasing your damage output will help you win a fight quicker, so you take less damage. Remember, vitality doesn't start having diminishing returns until 20 points, so you could go back and forth with whichever offensive weapon scaling stat and vitality until you hit that threshold. And for anyone wondering if there's a way to reset your stats, if you already allocated and you feel like you messed up your build, there is! After beating the second mission, you get the Primeval Regression Orb that lets you do just that. I'm not sure how often we'll get these, but if we get one just after the second boss, I'm pretty sure there's plenty more to collect. This completely resets all your Lacrima used for leveling, so consider leaving a like as I used the only one we got so far for your knowledge. Hopefully you found this guide helpful, and if there's any unanswered questions, then ask down below. Don't forget to subscribe for more guides when the full game releases, and if you enjoyed this video, consider checking out the best farming spot to have the ultimate save file to carry over into the full game right here. Until the next video, I'll see ya.